Hello, my name is Joseph Pirayo. I want to welcome you to today's program. In the beginning, Ashur, sorry, I was distracted. I was checking this book, God's Graves and Scholars. Of course, is directly not related to the story or the program today. Anyway, as always, thank you for spending the time to watch this program. And as always, you can reach Assyria TV on YouTube, Rumble, Facebook, Instagram, and X. Also, you can go to assyriatv.org, and we have over 5,000, almost 6,000 videos that you can check regarding different subjects and activities that are done by Assyria TV, programs, news, politics, everything that Assyria TV does. Anyway, today's subject is Enuma Elish. And just before I go to the subject, just want to kind of remind the purpose of in the beginning, Ashur is about our identity, preservation of our identity, preservation of our name. And last program I touched on Enuma Elish as far as is it related to our ancestors or is it something about Babylonians or are we the same? And some comments that I had personally was, why don't you talk about Enuma Elish and let people decide what it is and where it falls? So here we are, Enuma Elish. So this name is related to some seven fragments or seven tablets that are not complete. When we did the flyer, can we show that photo of these seven pieces? As you can see, these seven pieces, they're not complete. You know, like the first tablet, like maybe one third is preserved, and continue some other ones that contain full text, maybe and or maybe less. Uh, First, these tablets were found by Austin Henry Laird. I'm sure most of you are familiar with this name. He was an archaeologist back in the year 1849 when he was digging in Nineveh, the ruins of Nineveh that they had found uh, during the excavation. One of the items that they found were these tablets, and 1849, and later in 1876. So 26, 7 years later, a gentleman by the name of George Smith, he translates these and puts them uh, as a book. So Austin Henry Layard calls them the Babylonian Epic of Creation. And when George Smith publishes the translation that he has, he calls it Chaldean account of Genesis. So it kind of connects it to Genesis in the Bible as, another creation story. So this is like kind of uh, background, but I will give more background regarding Enuma Elish. And um, I don't know how many of you, I'm sure you have heard of it, the term Enuma Elish, but I don't know how many of you have read the translations that are available. And it is not just one, there's so many of them. Some of them that the translations they talk about like as if it's complete, and some other translations goes line by line and just translates it and doesn't give the account of the full story. And some other translations that they have translated it, they have kind of connected the dots and give you like a summary or the story as they think it has uh, happened. So anyway, so Enuma Elish, uh, let's see. We have one of the translations that I found. Can we show that photo with the names of characters involved in this what they call it, translation. So it says, first of all, it says Akkadian seal impressions, the world of the gods. So Akkadian. And the reason I'm mentioning the Akkadian part is that according to most of the historians, when they talk about Akkadians and Sumerians, Sumerians were in the lower part of Mesopotamia, where Babylon later became an empire, and Akkadians are in the northern part, which is the empire Ashur later was created. And these are the main characters that are mentioned in the Enuma Elish, the gods of the Enuma Elish. I mean, there are other names. I'm going to get to that part also, but specifically, we have freshwater Apsu, saltwater Tiamat. Then we have Lahmu and Lahamu, Anshar, Kishar, and Anu, the sky god. Then we have Damkina, Ea, and then we have Marduk, which is the storm god, and he's the champion of this whole what they call it story. And as I mentioned, I went through different areas to check on the story and get a full uh, what they call it picture, so I can share it with you. There is a site called World History Encyclopedia, and the information in there is like 7 years old, back in 2018. So I'm going to read a little bit what these people are uh, relating regarding Enuma Elish. So Enuma Elish, also known as the Seven Tablets of Creation, is the Babylonian creation myth whose title is derived from the opening lines of the piece, "When on high." So in the uh, original language that it was written, Enuma Elish is the first two words, which means "when on high." And it says the myth tells the story of the great god Marduk's victory over the forces of chaos and his establishment of order at the creation of the world. All of the tablets containing the myth found at Ashur, Kish, Ashurbanipal's library at Nineveh, Sultan Tepe, and other excavated sites dated back to 1200 years before Christ. The first part that I was looking into, it said about Henry Layard that he found it in the Ashurbanipal library. They said that was not the only copy. And as I said, they found it in the city of Ashur, Kish, Sultan Temple, other sites. And they say it goes back to 1200 year BC. Uh, and it seems to be these are the copies of much older version of the myth dating from the before the reign of Hammurabi of Babylon, 1792, 1750. So goes back at least 1800 years before Christ. And he's the king who elevated the god Marduk to patron city of Babylon. I didn't know about that, but I don't know if you knew about this, that it was King Hammurabi who elevated god Marduk. And the poem in its present form, with Marduk as its champion, is thought to be a revision of an even older Sumerian work. So this seems to be not the original tablet. The tablets, the seven tablets, are not the original story. It seems to be another one by the Sumerians, which are dating even further back to Old Babylonian during the what they call it, what was his name, Hammurabi. So these are the things that I found, which was very interesting because a lot of my friends that they very patriot, they call themselves, Ashur first, and they don't want to believe in Bible. They say that according to these stories, Bible, what is the Christian Jewish Bible, the stories are stolen from Enuma Elish. So we're gonna see, what the stories are in Enuma Elish, and we'll take it from there. So it says here, as Marduk, the champion of the young gods in their war against Tiamat. This is of Babylonian origin. The Sumerians say that Enki or Enlil is thought to have played a major role in the original version of the story. And they have found a copy in at Ashur and has the god Ashur in the main role, as was the custom of the cities of Mesopotamia. So that makes it interesting, like interchanging the names. Babylon, they had Marduk as their god, so they have the story of Marduk becomes the champion. Then city of Ashur, we find that Ashur is the champion, which kind of it's interesting. I'm going to get to that part. And it says the god of each city was always considered the best and most powerful. Marduk, the god of Babylon, only figures as prominently as he does in this story because most of the copies found are from Babylonian scribes. Even so, Ea still does play an important part in the Babylonian version by creating human beings. That's another part that gets confusing. Did Marduk create human beings or was it God Ea? Anyway, there's a summary of the story. I'm going to go through that. Sorry, don't mean to just be reading, but I just want to share the information that is out there regarding this Enuma Elish, either Babylonian epic of creation or was it the Chaldean account of Genesis related to the Christian Jewish Bible. So it says the story, one of the oldest in the world, concerns the birth of the gods and the creation of the universe and human beings. In the beginning, there was only undifferentiated water swirling in chaos. It doesn't say where, just there are waters, there are two different ones. Out of the swirl, the waters divided into sweet, fresh water known as the god Apsu. So we have fresh water called Apsu and salty, bitter water, the goddess Tiamat. Once differentiated, the union of these two entities gave birth to the younger gods. So as I'm reading this, I'm trying to, you can't help it back in your head. As I'm reading it, I said, okay, where is it this connecting to this Christian Jewish Bible? Like, okay, from the Enuma Elish, what was taken and put in the Bible that people say originally Enuma Elish is the original story and these are taken. So I was like, okay, fresh water, bitter water, they are indifferentiated. Then once they become separate, then these two waters, then they mix and they create these younger gods. I don't know, younger gods. It has to be new. I mean, eventually has to be young. Anyway, these younger gods, however, were extremely loud, troubling the sleep of Apsu at night and distracting him from his work by day. So these gods that we have in this epic, they just behave like humans. He has to sleep to get rest, so in the morning he can get up. And these younger gods, these kids, making noises and they bothering him. Then, upon the advice of his vizier, his I guess right hand Mumu, Apsu decides to kill the younger gods. So I guess they didn't really mean to create these gods. I don't mean to make fun of this, but it just can't help it to like reading the story that is connecting, that telling us the real creation of human beings that you and I are part of. This story is the one that is the right one, it's the true one because it's from tablets. So Apsu decides to kill the younger gods. Tiamat, hearing of their plan, warns her eldest son Enki. Sometimes he's Ea, and he puts Apsu to sleep and kills him. She betrays her, I guess, husband because the fresh water and salt water they mix together. These new gods come in. They tick off Apsu because I can't sleep at night. I want to kill him. Then the wife finds out and tells him, one of the eldest son Enki, and they put Apsu to sleep and kill him. And from Apsu's remain, Enki creates his home. So Tiamat, the salt, bitter water, once the supporter of the younger gods, now is enraged that they have killed her mate. I mean, she's the one that caused his death, right? Now she's enraged, like a woman. She changed her mind. Why did you kill him, right? So she consults with the god Quingu, who advises her to make war on the younger gods. And Tiamat rewards Kingu with the tablets of destiny, which legitimize the rule of a god and control the fates, and he wears them proudly as breastplate. With Quingu as her champion, Tiamat summons the forces of chaos and creates 11 horrible monsters to destroy her children. Now, there are other names, as we saw in that chart. We had Apsu, Tiamat, Lahmu, Lahamu, Anshar, Kishar, Ea, and Damkina, and Marduk. There are others, Mumu, that are mentioned here. And we have Anu, we have Nudimud, we have Kingu, and at the end we have Lulu, which is the same as Adam. That's the name of the first creation that we have. So Lulu and Adam are the same. I don't know what Lulu means, but Adam, Dumuta, like in Bible says, create man in our image, Adam. Anyway, so the story goes, Ea or Enki and the younger gods fight against Tiamat. Uh, they fight, but they cannot win. So there emerges the champion Marduk, who swears he will defeat Tiamat. Marduk defeats Quingu and kills Tiamat by shooting her with an arrow, which splits her in two. From her eyes flow the waters of Tigris and Euphrates River. So that's the creation of Euphrates and Tigris, which are mentioned in the Garden of Eden, in the story of Bible. Out of Tiamat's corpse, Marduk creates the heavens and the earth. He appoints gods to various duties and binds Tiamat's 11 creatures to his feet as trophies before setting their image in his new home. He also takes the tablets of destiny from Kingu, thus legitimizing his reign. These are the summaries that I have about the story. So after the gods have finished praising him for his great victory and the art of his creation, Marduk consults with the god Ea, the god of wisdom, and decides to create human beings from the remains of whichever of the gods encouraged Tiamat to make war. Kingu is charged as guilty and killed, and from his blood Ea creates Lulu, the first man, to be a helper to the gods in their eternal task of maintaining order and keeping chaos at bay. And apparently, these human beings, they didn't make noise like the gods, so they didn't piss him off or get him to kill him like they wanted to kill these younger gods. So part of the poem, it says that Ea created mankind on whom he imposed the service of the gods and set the gods free. Following this, Marduk arranged the organization of the netherworld and distributed the gods to their appointed station. And the poem ends in tablet 7 with long praise of Marduk for his accomplishment. There's a commentary here, which is interesting. The Enuma Elish would later be the inspiration for the Hebrew scribes who created the text now known as the Biblical Book of Genesis. Prior to the 19th century, the Bible was considered the oldest book in the world, and its narratives were thought to be completely original. In the mid-19th century, however, European museums as well as academic and religious institutions sponsored excavations in Mesopotamia to find physical evidence for historical corroboration of the stories in the Bible. These excavations found quite the opposite. However, in that, once cuneiform was translated, it was understood that the number of biblical narratives were Mesopotamian in origin. Famous stories as the fall of man and the great flood were originally conceived and written down in Sumer, translated and modified later in Babylon, and reworked by the Assyrians before they were used by Hebrew scribes for the versions which appear in the Bible. Although the basic paradigm of the biblical narratives and the Mesopotamian stories align closely, there are still significant differences as noted by certain scholars. I don't mean to laugh. Uh, See, one thing that I have learned, kind of unfortunately, that I've learned is that when I listen to people in authority, like growing up, if the priest would talk about a subject, I would never check. I will never check the Bible to see if it's true, if it's not true. Or when we come about Ashur, about our history, our kings, or the battles. We had these Assyriologists, people in PhD. They will tell about our history, and you never want to check on these. Not that you don't want, you don't think about checking. You say, hey, these are scholars. These people have PhDs. These people have spent years trying to find out the truth, and they're sharing that with us. And like, wow. And one of the things that was like amazing to me when I was like reading these people is that everything that we have in the Bible, the fall of man, the great fall, were originally conceived and written down in Sumer, translated and modified later in Babylon, and reworked by the Assyrians before they were used by the Hebrew scribes for the versions which appear in the Bible. I was going to originally read all of these seven tablets, what the story is all about. Stella, my wife, said, no, this is going to be boring. This is going to be like confusing because which version are you going to read? The ones that translated it line by line, which it doesn't connect the story because there are gaps. Because as you can see in the photo, some are broken, some are full. It's like three of them are full, but the other four, two of them is like, God knows even how they could find out what's written in them. So going back, and I was like, okay, what part of these that they're talking about Sumer, they were conceived? The story of fall of man, the great flood. Sumerians, they conceived and they wrote it down. Where did they conceive it? How they came up with it? So I guess apparently that's the true story. Is that what you're taking from this? Because Sumer got it, Babylon modified it, our ancestor reworked before the Hebrew scribes used them, right? So if you spend time to read these seven tablets that is translated in English, that's another thing. Is the translation correct? Because I checked two or three different translations and some things were different, right? Then after you read one or two different translations, I'm not saying read the whole Bible, but just read the part that talks about the fall of man and the flood, the great flood, right? And of course, we have seven tablets here. Then we have, let me see if I can find the Bible here. Seven tablets here. Let's say uh, this is Old Testament, New Testament. Okay. This part, oops, Matthew starts New Testament, right? So this part is Old Testament, the Hebrew Bible. All these characters, all these names, everything came from Enuma Elish. These are fictional characters. I mean, authority of information that we believe and share. How do we trust that authority? I'm not against Enuma Elish. I'm not for the Bible. I'm for the truth. Plus, this is Babylonian. Can we show that photo of those kids? See, these are all Ashuri flags, right? With our Humala clothes they're wearing, and it says Happy Akitu today. 1st of April marks the Babylonian and Assyrian New Year. Why do we include Babylon? Do we know the history of Babylon? Do we know what the Babylonians did to us? Their god is Marduk. The part that it was saying here that in the city of Ashur, they replaced uh, Ashur with Marduk. I checked, I trouble checked, I triple checked. I was checking on internet. I couldn't find anything. Maybe somebody out there can help me out. I was trying to find the origin of God Ashur that our ancestors believed in. There is not one mention that this Ashur is the son of who are these guys? Enki. What is the name? Is Marduk here is the son of Ea and Damkina, according to the flood story. Nowhere, maybe there's somebody out there that can help me out, a Syriologist or somebody that knows about the history of our ancestors. The god Ashur that our ancestors named themselves after, the city, the state, the empire, does not come from any other god. He was not created, he was, is timeless. So when we take this Marduk, that the god of Babylonians that they believed in, they didn't believe in Ashur. It was the Babylonians that they destroyed the Ashur empire. A friend of mine says, well, the Babylonians didn't enter Nineveh to destroy it. It was the Scythians and Medes. But the thing was that, as I always compare, how the Turks used Kurds to kill us. Not that they didn't do it themselves, but the Kurds were the one back in 100 years ago with the Seifu and all these things were happening. They used the Kurds. Same thing with the Babylonians. They used the Scythians and Medes. Somebody told me a long time ago, oh, Babylonians believed Nineveh was a holy city, so that's why they didn't enter. Well, they didn't enter themselves, but they let these other people to come in and destroy it, right? Babylon took over. Fall of Ashur was the beginning of the Babylon Empire. It didn't last that long. I think it was like, I don't know, 90 years, 100 years, but Nebuchadnezzar or his father, Nabopolassar, whoever it was. And we say, oh, Babylonians and Ashuri are the same people. I've talked about this before. Do you know about English relationship to Scottish and Irish and Welsh? Try to tell an Irishman, oh, you're English because you speak the same. They're going to kick your butt. They hate each other. You wouldn't even know the difference. Maybe there is some accent involved, but the English are hated by Welsh, by Irish, by Scots because of their treatment, of the English treatment towards, they look at them as a lower class, even though some of their kings are Irish background, Scottish background. Then we come to us, Babylonian, Assyrian. There is no Babylon. Babylon is the enemy. Babylon, Marduk, they believed in different set of faith that they had. Ashur, as I said in the beginning, this program is about preservation of our identity and name. If you know about Enuma Elish more than I just talked about, that is like, oh, definitely it was the story that our ancestors believed in, right? And that was the true story of creation. How come 2,000 years ago, same Ashuri that supposedly believed in Enuma Elish became Christian? Why? Can you please explain that to me? Please. Ashur, Ashuri, no Marduk, no Babylon. It's just so many different people with so many different ideas. They just say something and we pick it and we share it and we share it. And people say, oh, that's true. We are Ashuri Babylon. No, no, his study doesn't. That's where it comes that name Chaldean or Babylonian. That's why some people took that name because, oh, the church split now, we are different entity, we're Chaldean. Then last week I talked about the Syriac or Aramean. What's going on here? Learn about who you are. Who is Ashuri? What is our history? What did our ancestors believe in? As I mentioned, you cannot be a communist and Ashuri at the same time because Ashuri believed in a higher power. It's not that I'm against communism or not, but water and oil, they don't mix. Babylon, Ashur, they don't mix. Enuma Elish is somebody else's story. And our ancestors believed in the Bible. You like it, you don't like it, this is our history. Preserve our identity. That's the main thing. And it's a great identity. And we shouldn't let some people, just because they have some degree or whatever you want to call it, come and tell us otherwise. as it says in this, started from Sumer, Babylon, then Assyrian, then Hebrew Bible came out. How? Check it out. Anyway, I just wanted to share that part with you. So, as always, Ahiya Ashur Chaya. Oh, there is one other part. Somebody told me, oh, the god Anshar. This is the name that they used about Ashur. Anshar is similar to Ashur. I said, great. Anshar is grandfather of Marduk. Anyway, in Enuma Elish, Anshar doesn't end up being the top dog, as they say in English. Marduk becomes. So Anshar here, if it's Ashur, in this story even makes it even helps the narrative. They didn't follow Ashur. Grandfather is Ashur. No more Ashur. Marduk. We are not the same. Preservation of identity and name. Blessed be Ashur, the work of God's hand. Ahaya Ashur Chaya. Thank you for watching. Chaya Ashur. Mabqila. Thank you and see you next program.
شيخاني